You arrive at this amazing glacier surrounded with huge mountains. Everest on the left, lots in the back, and then Noops at your right.
You're up there on the mountain and you've got relationships with all the people that you're climbing with. It just makes the experience a lot richer.
Hi, everyone. I just want to give you a little bit presentation or a little background of who I am and where I come from. I'm an IFM mountain guide. I've been guiding for almost 30 years. A little bit of Everest here, a little bit of Aconcagua over there, and just chasing mountains. I had the amazing opportunity to meet Reagan years ago in Denali.
Hello, everyone, or hello, fellow adventurers, I should say. I'm Reagan. I was a corporate lawyer and banker for a few decades before I started climbing in my early 50s. And with Willie's help, I've been able to stand on top or the side, you can see in that picture, of some pretty cool places. I've learned a ton from Willie, and it's all been a tremendous amount of fun. So I want to point out that my role today is to provide you with the perspective of a normal person who's only climbed Everest once and is pretty happy about it.
We're going to talk a little bit about preparation training, how Reagan trained with me and how we met and what he needed to work with. And just give you a little idea of what it takes to climb Everest and what I see of Everest as the good and the bad. Everyone knows about Everest. For the last couple of years, it has received a lot of bad publicity. And it's true, there's a lot of bad things happening, but at the same time, it's a lot of good things. And Everest is just extremely important part of Nepal as country, as economy. I grew up in Patagonia, population 8, no mountains, just oceans, a lot of penguins. I have a twin brother who is easy to do things when you have a twin brother because all you have to do, I dare you. If I say I dare you to Damien, Damien will do it. If Damien say it, I dare you, I will do it. So, that's easy. We have some chickens, we have some penguins. As I said before, no mountains are not rocks to climb. One thing about Patagonia is just the necessity is mother of all inventions. So we have land to climb at the chin of our house. And we have no trees neither, it's a desert. So we just figured out along the way. Sometime in the early 80s, I think it was 81, 82, one of the cold winters, we were able to capture this book about climbing Everest. And instantly we let our imagination run wild. We wanted to do that, we wanted to follow the steps of Tenzing Norway, of Henry Hillary. And I wanted to see what it takes, to climb Everest. But again, as a kid with not much resources, but significant amount of dreaming, I guess, and passion, we realized that we needed to move from Argentina and come to the US, and we started working in whatever job we can get, from flipping burgers to working in boats in the Bay Area. And then eventually I began to be a guide in trainee. Time passed, and then in 1999, I was invited to guide, or offered to guide Everest. And for me, that was a dream come true. In May 12th of 1999, I stood on the summit of Everest. And yes, I brought a penguin, just to bring the memory of the first time I found out about what Everest was. It was an easy journey. It's a journey that took many years of practice, from climbing the chin from my house to Aconcagua and just multiple other stuff. So what it takes, Everest is your ultimate goal. I strongly believe and you can do it. Just you have to take your time and build a strong foundation. And you can start by climbing Kilimanjaro, who give you a little bit of that high altitude training. And eventually you're going to move to Aconcagua. Aconcagua, almost 7,000 meters. It gives you the perfect introduction to the art of suffering. Aconcagua is an extremely long summit day at 7,000 meters. Is almost just, I would say, half of the ocean level, the sea level. Super cold, windy. It's just a perfect recipe of training ground to tackle bigger objectives. And that's Aconcagua. That not only, gaining high altitude experience is just one thing, but the reality in Everest, it's just you need to be a climber, a mountaineer. So just own your skills, begin to be self-efficient. This one, for example, we're training in Mont Blanc. Do a lot of things. Just learn about your winner's medicine, advanced training. It just is so much over there. Cut corners. It's just extremely important. And that's something that Reagan and I will learn, we learn of each other about that, about not cutting corners, about training. Once you get that, just let's go for our Everest specific training. But first, do your homework, climb a lot of mountains. Going to climb Baker, for example, could give a little bit of that glacial environment without that much risk. Come here to the West and climbing, for example, the Southway to Superior of it's a lot of small objectives you can tackle in the US and Europe or around the world. Then they give you the basic knowledge of what it takes to climb a mountain. And if you build it up with your high altitude experience, Everest is possible. This, for example, this is just Baker, training in Baker. I want to now just give it to Reagan. Yes, it's your turn to just tell me, how we met and what was your journey?
Well, that art of suffering did kick in. And so Willie and I met on Denali. And as I had said, I started climbing later in life. I took a mountaineering course for just a week. And then I went to Denali and really was underprepared for what I was going to experience on Denali. So that's the summit of Denali with Willie and our team. And that summit day was a tough day for me. We still got down. We got down safely. Willie's outstanding at that. And afterwards, I called Willie and I asked him what I should do to progress as a mountaineer. I had an opportunity to do an 8,000 meter peak in the fall after Denali, and I wanted his advice. He advised me against jumping right back to a bigger mountain and went back to that foundation. And Willie pointed out that I had 3 gaps in my climbing. First of all, I didn't know how to climb. I had very basic and not even very good basic climbing skills. And I was very fortunate to have some awesome teammates and guides to get me up and down Denali safely. But as Willie said, you need to be self-sufficient. And we didn't have anything really go bad on Denali, but if it would have, I wouldn't have been able to contribute like I would have wanted. So Willie and I started a program of working on those basic climbing skills. A lot of climbing relates to each other. So rock climbing is still very helpful for the alpine environment. This is Florida. I was living in Florida at the time, and we're making do with what we've got. The highest point in Central Florida was my office, and fortunately I had a pool. But after that pool, we started taking like micro trips. So we went to the North Cascades and did a lot of ridge climbing. We worked on crevasse rescue. We did a lot of rock climbing. And that's, a great shot of, just getting used to exposure and rock systems. We went down to Moab in southern Utah and climbed some towers there. And so this one is an example in the Red Rocks where Willie is instructing me on a hold that I should have used. I am showing him the hold I did use right before I fell. And so, it's a lot about learning and learning systems and continuing to build that foundation. And like I said, we went to Moab after that. And then we kind of ended up in the Wasatch. That's a shot at one of the towers in Moab. It's either Six Shooter or Castleton. And this shot is on, you can see down in the valley, Salt Lake City's right there. And it's a great training environment. You fly in, you don't have to camp. You can stay in a decent hotel and still get a lot of good exposure to lots of ridge climbing and backcountry skiing. And that one of my daughters and I are climbing up this ridge with Willie. And all that experience helps bring together, and address one of my other shortcomings, which was balance. I had a background as a runner. And when you run on road or you're a cyclist on road or a swimmer, it's really hard to develop those stabilizer muscles. And so my balance was a little sketchy. And when you're sketchy, you burn a lot of energy on a big mountain just because you're nervous. And so things like this and backcountry skiing in the Wasatch all contribute to building that foundation. That's the approach to Mount Superior, not the ridge climb. But that's a beautiful backcountry skiing environment. And so when you're backcountry skiing, it still helps your balance and how to work on snowshoes or crampons. It all relates. And so all this was learning in a very fun environment.
So as we're moving forward on this training, I told Reagan, well, Reagan, that's fine. Now you can allow these basic elements of mountaineering, climbing. Let's just go for the next step. It's just be a little more specific about Everest. Our goal was there. We'll still, there's a lot of micro goals along the way. And I guess this one, Reagan, is in Cotopaxi, Ecuador, yeah?
Right. And I don't know if you can tell in the lower portion of the photo, you'll see a rope. Willie had set up a fixed line climbing situation in the lower part of a glacier on Cotopaxi. We practiced transitioning through the fixed lines in a pretty small ice fall environment. And there's a lot of skills that you're very specific to Everest, and going through the fixed lines, crossing crevasses, ascending them, doing a Sherpa rappel. Those are all very different and specific skills. Then after this, Willie sensed that I didn't like crossing ladders. And so I had a pretty low fall environment there. Then after that, I think there's a good emphasis on once your guide or your trainer really gets to know you, they learn how to motivate you. So we decided to do some avalanche beacon search and avalanche safety training. And so in my beacon search, I did get a prize.
Yeah, so again, the bottom line is it's just about training. Keep training. And the more self-reliance you are, the safer is the journey to whatever goal you have. Not only, I mean, it could be Everest, it could be anything. It could be Mont Blanc in Europe or Rainier here. Just because you're going with a guide, it doesn't mean that everything is on your guide and you just know how to learn anything. Either Reagan took a EMT class, because that just pretty actually surprised me and make me quite happy when you decide to take your EMT class. That's emergency medical technician. Because every time was something, I would say, hey, Reagan, can you take care of that? So it took away a little bit of their medical responsibility, health responsibility. And then I had mostly a lot of trips. So now, once we, Reagan and I, we were ready, it was time for us to look to the other goal. Our goal was just Everest. And obviously, the main goal of climbing Everest is here, but it still is a lot of micro goals along the way. And what I have found out is if you make that goal only goal on your life, whatever it is, just Everest in this case, and suddenly you see it is, you're sick, you're just having a tough day, whatever it is, and you say, there's no way I can make it to the summit. There's no way I'm going to be able to make it. You might not. What if I find out then that final goal is far away, then I make myself small, cheated goals along the way. My first goal is just to get to Everest Base Camp without getting sick. And that's just my priority for that trip. We understand that in climbing Everest, and we all have seen the news about Everest and how bad it is. I think I said it before. And I have to say then, Everest without our Sherpas, without the help of Nepal as a country, it would be impossible. The impact of climbers on Everest is pretty significant. I have to say there's not perhaps the best one. I try to make it as less impactful as possible and as safer as possible. I have to say then the industry of Everest in general, as mean the full economy of from the trekkers to the climbers, is roughly about $300 million a year. That was in 2018. That is about 8% of the gross domestic of Nepal. If I say we should shut down Everest completely because we destroy the mountain, I agree. But we need to find a solution where at the same time, the community of Nepal can survive economically and be able to provide for their families. Right now with the COVID situation, the situation is terrible. It's just pretty bad. The Sherpa community is actually doing, I think, the end. They make quite well in Everest trips. Then they can take care with savings. But the porters and the people who should provide supplies to the lodges is the one who suffer the most. And that ones are, they have nothing. They have no food right now. It's just plain and simple. One of the good things about positive impact of climbers, it's just this. It's just this simple sign. Welcome to Pamboche Primary School. established by Hillary in 1963. He noticed that in the Kumbu Valley, where Everest is situated, didn't have any schools at all, none, zero. And he built that school. And I would like to think that thanks to the Everest climbers, other schools have been built. As a matter of fact, now they're Sherpas who they are pilots, doctors, you name it. 50 years ago, that was just out of the question. You know, it was just, no one knew how to ride, pretty much. The Sherpas for me are, and Reagan, you know quite well, they're like my brothers. They treat me as a brother, and Willie dies, my big brother. I will treat them as my brothers. The person with the blue hat, his name is Lapa. Lapa guided for me for years. He was the leader, the Sherpa boss. He worked enough to save enough money to eventually move to San Francisco, and now he's a police officer in San Francisco. Another thing is just, you know, opportunities, yes? It's about creating opportunities, and the person to the right is Maila. Maila Rai, he's a member of a cast who was not permitted to climb Everest. He was permitted to work as a base camp kitchen boy, carrying water, washing dishes, taking care of things. And somehow I convinced the Sherpas, we all talk about it, you know, then we all should have an opportunity. And I said, let's let him climb Everest. He said, no, Willie died, that's not possible. And then eventually 1 year they said, yeah, Willie died, we're going to take him up Everest. And there he is on the summit of Everest. He's next to Lapa. And then he is the first rider from his cast to summit Everest. It's pretty unique. And, you know, Maila, Super Smaila, you know, he's a cook now and still working. He has no summit Everest since, but he did have the chance. And for him and for every Sherpa to, you know, stand on the top of Everest, it's a pretty unique thing and pretty important. So we arrive at Kathmandu. So we all, again, we spent a few days in Kathmandu organizing, doing all the final shopping, doing the permits, all the political, also the bureaucracy of getting a permit. And, you know, Nepal has a pretty high level bureaucracy to deal with. And that's okay, it just takes a few days. And eventually we are ready to go, and again, everyone saw pictures of Everest being pretty crowded. Actually, for me, the most crowded part of the entire expedition is going to be the airport, this is actually kind of like my picture of last year on the Hillary step, where there's 200 people trying to fit through a door of 2 feet wide. So the journey starts roughly once we fly to Lukla, who is the gates of the Everest National Park, per se, of the Kumbu Valley. We have roughly about 40 miles hiking to base camp. It takes about 10 days to get to base camp, not because the distance is, mostly because we need to acclimatize. Everest base camp is 17,000 feet. We landed at 9,000. So if we go straight to Everest base camp and landed over there, we are going to be a little bit sick. So we take our time to make it to base camp. We just hike along the way, visit Sherpa's families, and just meeting new friends along the way. Kumbu, believe it or not, these dogs made all the way to come to Everest and went through the ice fall. Pretty unique guide, and he wanted to get fit. Another stop along the way, and one of the most important one for me and for my Sherpas, is to visit Mageshi. Mageshi is old lama, the most important lama of the valley per se. And you guys can see in the background a lot of pictures of climbers. This picture, actually, of Dalai Lama. He didn't speak English. He speaks a little bit of Nepali, but speak Tibetan mostly. And he will give us a blessing, allow us to enter Everest. And he was the only human beings who make me cry. And not because he has bring a lot of sadness to me, just the energy he imposed on me in his aura.
Yeah, I met him at least 2, maybe 3 times. But on Amma, he made a special trip to come to our tea house to give us the blessing. And I remember when he got there, and he was pretty advanced age at the time. It was impressive for him to make the trip. But he looked at you and he grinned and he said, "There are two of you."
Yeah, my twin brother. Anyway, once we just get the blessing from Mageshi, eventually we're right at base camp. And base camp is a pretty unique place. As I said, after 10 days of hiking and resting, acclimatizing, we're right to base camp, 70,000 feet approximate. We arrived to the end of this valley. We cannot truly see Everest. It's because it's behind the west shoulder. But we see this entire circle of huge mountains and this huge river of ice, it's the ice fall. The low latitude left, and it's just a rocky moraine with the glacier, terminal glacier on in front of us. And it's kind of like a mining town. This amazing base camp built up over this rocky moraine. Not only that, just 2 weeks early was nothing there. And they're going to be there for the next 40 days, 45 days. It's going to be our home. The first few days, Everest base camps are tough. Reagan, you done really well at high altitude, so you didn't experience too much with high altitude sickness at base camp.
Well, I think a lot of it had to do with taking our time coming in. That trek through the Kumbu Valley takes quite a while, and I think it helped. It's like developing climber skills. The more you're in an environment, the more comfortable you feel. So I was pretty comfortable. We took our time, and your food's pretty good, and that helps.
Yeah, Argentinians, we proud of our food. So yeah, you're right to base camp, everything's set up. The first few days are a little tough because suddenly your body is realizing, wait a minute, I'm 17,000 foot, 5,000 meters above sea level. Humans are not designed to be living permanently at that elevation. So your body needs to adapt. We are waiting for the specific date for the pusha. The push is a ceremony where we ask permission to the god of the mountain of Everest, Chomolunga, Sagarmatha, for safe passage. And that date is pretty specific on the calendar, and we're waiting for that day. And usually we have a lama coming in to perform the pusha. And it's a chance to meet with their team of Sherpas finally. The Sherpas will be they arrive at the base camp 2 weeks early to set it up. And suddenly I had to say that our team finally is complete, is tied in. Sherpas are happy to see us again. This is Dorji and Kiki, one of our guides. Yeah, it's a time to rest and get strong and start thinking what is our next goal. Once the push is done and we kind of acclimatized already, our next goal is going to be start going through the ice fall. But prior to that is, just as Reagan can say a lot, it's just about, just because you have a race, that doesn't mean you cannot stop training. The more you train, the more you perfect that skill, the better it's going to be your journey to Everest. For me, training our Sherpas team are the ones who has the high level exposure to going through the ice fall, because the ones who has to carry a lot of the load. It's the ones who I want to be sure they're completely trained. In this case, we're doing a medical training with them. It's pretty awesome. They just, whatever gear they have, and as I say, necessity is smart all the inventions. We do a crevasse rescue training. In this case, for example, I try to invite teams, members of Sherpas from other teams to be part of this. And we have all the seaters, so the bosses of the other teams coming in to be participant of this crevasse rescue training. It's pretty awesome to work with. And then, with that said, is we all seen pictures of Everest, and somehow magically we always see pictures of Everest, of climbers in Everest, but we never see pictures of our Sherpas. Or I climb Everest, and Sherpas are secondary and I story. Sherpas for us are members, are our teams. We're all together, and we all are here as a team. We have the same goal, is just to go home safe, have a great time. And our final goal is Everest. The first goal is always safe, good time, and just get to know each other. And Reagan, you remember our boys a little bit.
That was great, and you did a great job. You and Damien really emphasize it, of integrating the team early and getting to build those relationships with your entire team, not just your client team, I think is a huge deal. And it's fun. And these people are fantastic, amazing, interesting people and happy. And it's great to know them anyway. But I think it really adds to safety a lot too, Willie. You know, when you're up there on the mountain and you've got relationships with all the people that you're climbing with, that you're depending on, it just makes it a lot better. And I think it just makes the experience a lot richer anyway.
So, Reagan, you want to talk a little bit about the acclimatation process? How was it for you?
I thought it went well. You know, I know it's changed over the years, but, you know, we were there in 2017. And I think by that time, you know, everybody continues to learn. I think you've adapted your program too. But you're making rotations up the mountain. I think a lot of people have heard about that. And you climb to a higher level and you retreat a little bit to sleep at a lower level. But one of the things on Everest that you also manage is going through the Kumbu Ice Fall. And the ice fall has a lot of objective hazards. And I think, Willie, you've limited your trips through the ice fall over the years, haven't you?
Yeah, it's true. When I first started climbing Everest, it was just, 10 passes through the ice fall. Sleeping at Camp 3 at 7,000 meters. You must go from base camp to Camp 2, one shot, and then spend a night at Camp 3 at 7,000 meters before you ever be considered to climb Everest. And we have learned along the way that it didn't work out that well. You can see it's base camp to Camp 1, the first run is about 4 to 6 hours, Reagan, yeah?
Right, depending on the team and the crowd and so forth.
And so forth. And base camp to Camp 2, on the first run is another 4 hours, and eventually you can drop it to 2. And base camp 2 to Camp 3 is another 6 to 3 hours, depends the teams and the conditions and the crowds. But you can see, guys, over there, then it's a significant amount of distance to cover. Elevation gain, base camp is at 5,000 meters, Camp 1 is at 6,000 meters, Camp 2 is at 6,400 meters, Camp 3 is 7,100, 200 meters, depends where you're located. So elevation gain is significant. The average, we're trying to keep less than an average 1,000 meters per day elevation gain as maximum. So we are there, yes. We're trying to limit the exposure to the ice fall, not only for us, but for Sherpas as well. So less transitions we do, the less transition for the Sherpas as well. For me, it's been 20 years, and I had to say that I'm lucky enough that I have never been involved in an accident. I have never have a Sherpa or a member be involved in an accident. But yeah, let's just play safe. Once you reach Camp 1 is when you truly see Everest. How was it for you, Reagan, when you reached Camp 1?
It was a bit of a relief getting through the ice fall and topping out. And I know the first time I went there, the circumstances were a little more challenged, but you get a bit of relief. And then for me, it kind of struck me how much further distance-wise it was through the Western Cumb before you hit the Lhotse face. I mean, all the peaks out there are so amazing. And so you're looking at so many different peaks. And then by the time you finally see this mountain that you've heard about for so long, in some ways, you can't wait to get to it. And some ways, you're glad you stopped to take a break.
So our acclimatation process started. Our first journey is through the ice fall, and you can see in the ice fall, in the night, you can see the lights in the background, just they call the white snake. In the past, it has been always the mountain and us, the humans, and now it's us, the humans, and the mountain. So if suddenly the ice fall is becoming too busy, we're going to go back to sleep. If not that busy, we're going to start the journey. We're going to work as hard as possible to make the journey to each camp or to summit areas with the least amount of exposure as possible. And when you have a lot of climbers around us, the exposure is beginning to be more significant because you're in a traffic jam, you cannot move. And it doesn't matter if Everest, it doesn't matter if it's Mont Blanc, it doesn't matter if it's Denali or K2 right now in the middle of winter. It's just a lot of people who wants to go and play, and we have to respect that and expect that. And we just have to make it a way where how we can do this with less impact and as safe as possible. The ice fall is just the basic example. It's a gigantic pile of ice cubes the size of buildings within a constant stage of moving. We use ropes, we use ladders to go through them. And This is just a classic example of a section where it's just there's 4 ladders. The maximum I have is almost 10 ladders. So imagine this is 4 when you see a 10 ladder.
Yeah, and you should point out, those aren't the ladders that painters use. These are ladders that I'm scared of going up on top of one of them. And somehow the ice fall doctors lash these together and it works. It's
a team of specialized Sherpas who their job and their job only is to fix the entire length of the ice fall all the way to Kumbu. We're talking roughly about 5 kilometers, just fixed with ropes and ladders and you name it. In a good season, we might have 15 ladders in a 5. In a hard season, we might have 30. That means bridges to be collected, to pass through. These team of Sherpas are provided by the government of Nepal, and we as a base camp pay directly to the government of Nepal to take care of this. As you climb the ice fall, which is eventually we know is the end of the ice fall, and it brings a big relief. Reagan was pretty happy every time he reached the end of the ice fall, except when he needed to pass this one. Ladders can be a little wobbly, Reagan.
Yeah, they get very wobbly, and those holes are very deep and dark, and I don't want to be there.
Yeah, but here there's a bit of this. We all just kind of helping each other. They just, you have the handrails, and then I don't know if you remember, but sometimes they're a little loose. So a Sherpa would come behind you for a completely different team. And always like that Sherpa wants you to move as fast as possible. So he will come in, tense the rope so you can cross it. So eventually we pass that, we reach to Camp 1. That's the first rotation. In the past, as Reagan said, that we used to go up to Camp 1 and come down, just touch and come down. Now it's straightforward. Our first rotation is to go up and reach all the way to Camp 2. And this is the view that Reagan was talking about. You arrive at this amazing glacier surrounded with huge mountains. Everest on the left, lots at the end and the back, and then Nupsa to your right. As a matter of fact, you almost can see, I climb a new route on the right side over there, somewhere back when I was young and I did have sense of immortality a lot. Now, that doesn't happen anymore. So we reached Camp 1, we set up Camp 1, we're going to spend a couple of days over there. Our mojo, and Reagan can talk about this, is if you want to climb Everest, you expect that you're going to suffer a lot, but that doesn't mean you should not eat well. And the better you eat, the happier is your tummy, the happier is your heart, the happier is your soul. It makes some of the suffering less significant. Damien is extremely proud of his bagels. So he goes to the supermarket here in Salt Lake City and buys dozens and dozens of bagels and cream cheese and smoked salmon, and we just have a picnic at 6,000 meters in the Kumbu. Our next journey this is a view for our Camp 1, and we start a journey from Camp 1 to Camp 2. This is the beginning of the season, so the jet stream is on top of Everest. You can see the plumes of winds blowing. On the left is Everest, and you can see the wind is pretty strong over there. Reagan, you remember that wind, so you can hear the train routing, yeah?
Oh, yeah, and those are probably when the jet stream is not at its most fierce. So it reminds you pretty quickly how small you are.
And here, despite being on 6,000 meters, the way how the glacier is situated and you're surrounded by these mountains, you get to this effect, the heat effect. And this, I have to say, this is the places where the hardest I've been in my life. You remember that day is hiking up to Camp 2.
That was my hardest day. The first time I went through the Western Cumbu was my hardest day. We left probably a little later than we should have, and I literally put snow in my pants to cool down. It's just an oven in there with all that reflection.
Yeah, it gets super hot, guys. As Reagan say, my recommendation is start cold and finish warm. Do not start hot and finish cooking. That means start much earlier than us. We were a little lazy that morning. Sometimes we like to sleep well. Here, I want to talk a little bit about adapting to progress.
Lo que vemos ahí, esa es la ruta original de Campo 3. Campo 3 está ahí, inferior, superior, banda amarilla, la tortuga, Campo 4 del Lhotse, y ahí es por de Ginebra. ¿Qué problemas tenemos? Mucha caída de piedra de ahí, derecho así. Entonces, vamos a buscar una ruta alternativa hasta ahí, todo por ahí, hasta allá. Así que vamos a ver qué pasa. Y me siento re bien hoy.
And Daniel's feeling pretty good about it too. So anyway, just because we have a plan, we doesn't mean we have to stick to the plan. You know, Everest is about adapting and just to the issue and how we can overcome to that issue. That year was pretty bad. I mean, we just, as base camp unit, we said, well, their team's going home because they found that it was too dangerous to climb Everest with a rockfall section. Mostly because, yes, we don't want to expose our Sherpas to the rockfall. I agree 100%. But we noticed that it was the years of experience in Everest to say, let's just make a new route and get outside of the final section. And Damien went up and fixed a new route. And that year, Everest was able to summit Everest without fatal accidents because Damien was able to say, that's it, I just going to go grab a team of Sherpas and guides, we're going to go and fix this. And that's gone through back to the problems we have in Everest with the current overcrowding and all these accidents that you guys saw last year, for example, and you probably have seen for the last previous years. It's just people get to this tunnel vision, then I had to go on A, B, C, D to make it to the summit, and there's no variations. Anyway, our acclimatization process is done. Time for us to go down to base camp and eat some good food. And Barram is the most important member of the team because he's the cook. As I said before, without a happy tummy, no one climbs Everest. And Reagan, you can testify about that too a little bit. We finished the acclimatization process. It took roughly, it's day 40 of the expedition. It's time for us to go down valley. Some people might go down valley to lower elevations to gain more weight, to get stronger. In our case, we tend to stay in base camp all the time because our base camp is pretty cozy. We just eat a lot, we sleep. We try to just recuperate a little bit. And now it's time for us to wait for that perfect summer window. Historically, our summer window has always been from May 12th to May 25th forward. That's the moment when the jet stream moves north. The earliest summit in my career is May 12th, and the latest summit is May 29th. But 90% of my summits has been on the range of May 16th to May 25th. In the past, I was the first team of going for the summit window, just fixing ropes. And as the time passed, the older I get, wiser I get, I guess. But at the same time, I realized that then too, the larger groups, our team, we make the effort to make our team as small as possible and as prepared as possible to be on Everest. That doesn't necessarily other teams are in the same boat. That means that, for them to make financially, it's all about numbers. The larger the groups, the more money you make. And the cheaper it is for that climber to afford to climb Everest. And that's fair. But with that, it carries some issues. As the larger the group is, the more pressure you have to summit early, just go home early. So it's cheaper for you to maintain the climbers in base camp. Or because you don't have an experience and you say, I want to summit the first summit push because it needs to be done now. For us, now we choose to go later in the season because we want to skip from all that first wave of summiter pushers who tend to have less experience. And Reagan, you probably experienced a little bit about that. It was hard to be a base camp waiting for a perfect summer window.
Yeah, it is. And, you're so ready, and it's an environment that even though you guys do a tremendous job of making it as comfortable as possible, it's still not the environment that you're getting healthier or getting stronger. So you kind of want to get going, but you did a nice job of setting everybody's expectation of what we wanted to do. And none of us wanted to climb in a crowd.
Yeah. So here is all the members and the Sherpas are resting, and it's a time for base camp manager, Damien and I, and some of the teams too, to start planning the perfect window. And it's a lot about data and gut feeling, and a little bit of private investigation to figure out who's going up, what day, how are the members of that team going for the summit window, same as you will affect you. The weather, how's that going to affect you? The temperatures, the winds, just so much information. You have to package it for the perfect summit day. And you guys got to see a scale over there that is red. Reds mean bad. And okay to arrive to South Cole, the last camp by 8,000 meters on the partial weather, but it's important for me is to have my summit day and my day out to get out of South Cole on a really good weather. So we work it out, and as time passed, you can see that the May 25th was a perfect day because I knew that May 26th, the weather still was pretty good. So allow me to get in and get out in a safely manner. Coming out is hard. You're pretty tired after summit, and if you have bad weather, things are tricky. In this care, we have our summit day preparation. This actually was our summit push of that year. And you can see how Georgie put the day we left South Cole, when we arrived, the moment we arrived at the summit, and it's her job to track us exactly where we are all the time. I'm able to call on the radio and say, we are at such a place. Georgie is making all the math about how much oxygen we have. It's just it's a brain working outside. I'm just focusing in the safety of the moment and base camp manager to keep us a little more awake. Waiting at base camp was difficult. It was just stressful, especially when you see all the teams coming down for their summit push. Some in good shape, others not, but they summit and we are still in base camp. Yeah, with all that, it's a lot of stress involved. Our summit push is ready to go. We made it to Camp 2, and here it says a lot about our team and what we're trying to create as a team. We have a small group. We have Lobson Dai on the back as he's an IFM Sherpa guy, one of the few certified international mountain guides, and the group in the front. As you notice, is Reagan laughing in the back. And the reason why he's laughing is because he was complaining perhaps I was moving too fast. So he wanted to slow me down. So he put a rock on top of my backpack. The point is, we have to make the effort to make it as fun as possible. A lot of times it wasn't. The past and the super tough days ahead. Sometimes I know the easy guys to handle. I can be a little bit on the too bossy, drill sergeant. I have high expectations, and obviously everyone has high expectations as well. We just make it fun. So eventually we started at Camp 2, Camp 3. Reagan, you want to tell us a little bit about how it was for you to summit Everest?
From here, the climb really changes coming out of Camp 2. You really start to feel the altitude more going up the Lhotse face. The climb gets physically more demanding. You can see the angle there is much higher. So you're exerting more energy, you're higher altitude, and coming into Camp 3, you really start to feel that you're high. You're starting to feel the altitude more. And then out of Camp 3, you make your way. I think that's Camp 3 there. Yeah, it's kind of stuck on the side of the Lhotse face. You really don't want to stay there very long. It's more of a get to 3 and then get to 4 as soon as you can.
Everyone has seen pictures of Everest and the craziness of Everest, and crowded, and people who definitely should not be there. And I agree, there's a lot of people who should definitely not be there. And I completely disagree with that, saying that, yeah, don't worry about it. You will learn the skills in base camp, and my Sherpas will take you to the summit. Because that is extremely unfair for the Sherpas. It's extremely unfair for everybody else around you who did do the due diligence and did do the homework to be as self-reliant as possible. And I want to use these pictures as an example to show how crazy it could get. But with the proper planning, you can experience the opposite of that, of this loneliness, of this quietness. And I don't say you might be the only person in the entire mountain, because that's not true. The only way you can do that if you're going in the middle off season by yourself. It doesn't matter. You share the mountain still with hundreds of people. But if you choose well, you can limit the amount of climbers around you. This is Reagan going up to the South Col.
Yeah, the timing was very fortuitous. We summited on May 25th. So we went from 3 to 4 on the 24th. And that's where we saw coming down several groups who had summited probably on the 23rd. That weather window opened up early, people rushed up, good for them, but you let that first crowd go and clear, and then we were heading up. So we didn't have, I don't think, anybody that we waited for on our summit day, except for once for maybe 20, 30 minutes at a section where you couldn't pass. The rest of the time, we kept the pace we wanted.
Everyone, in the background of Reagan to the left, you're going to see the purple summit of Everest. You will see the triangle face and eventually the ridge line, where it's the balcony in the south summit. That day is windy. This is roughly about noon approximate. We're trying to arrive to the South Col quite early. And this is now for the opposite side. Looking down on the lower right side, this is Camp 2 at 6,400 meters. And that is Camp 1 and base camp is down there. We have come a long way up. And then eventually that summer window was strange because, as I said before, it was windy that day. It wasn't the best of the days as arriving in South Col. I was a little nervous about our timing when we're going to leave, so I was just figuring out the best time. I have idea of what time we should depart, but it was just depending upon how the weather is going to drop.
When we got in, we weren't sure we were going to go the next day. I remember in the tent with my buddy Mac that we only got a couple hours of sleep, and then you woke us up and said, we're going. And I was pretty comfy in my sleeping bag, and I think I probably said, are you sure? But it paid off.
Yeah, it paid off. So we started. We still have some groups with us from other teams who they went ahead of us. And again, it's just about planning. It's just like playing chess. You plan all these things ahead of you, figure out where each team is going to be, and you're just trying to figure out if that team is there, I'm going to catch up with them and I'm going to go to passing here or there. This is reaching the South Summit. We plan in a way where I can pass a lot of the teams through the night. It's extremely dark, extremely cold, extremely claustrophobic when you're wearing the mask and the goggles and you feel you cannot really breathe that much. But we're able to move quite well. I think we passed a few teams that night.
I think we passed several. Some of them at a break that they may have taken, and then some of them we unclipped. And I think you short roped, and all others did as well. And you know where to pass on that mountain.
It's been a few times, so I kind of have my little tricks. Eventually, we arrive at the South Summit early in the morning. It's a beautiful morning, almost no wind at all. You can see there's no wind because you can see, everyone can see that the straps of the backpacks are completely flat, just like it was perfect. It's warm. You climb through the night, can see nothing. Everything fog up, and when the sun hit, it's just suddenly you go back alive from the death for some reason. It's just a strange feeling of climbing through the night, and when sunrise arrives, it's just suddenly you're alive again. And everyone has seen these crazy pictures from 2019 season where it was just a huge traffic jam in Hillary Step. Matter of fact, it was just fatalities last year in the Hillary Step because the traffic jam was so big and people were not moving. Here, this is a place where Reagan was talking earlier about we wait for 20 minutes. The reason why we wait here is I want that team who is coming down to come up to here because that's easy for us to pass versus keep moving and counter them on a technical section is extremely difficult and dangerous to pass. What happened here is everyone's had this summit fever, their tunnel vision, and they have these side things. They cannot think anymore and they just keep moving. One person move 1 inch, you move 1 inch, and so on and so on. Eventually, you hit with somebody else and you cannot pass and no one's doing nothing about it. And you can spend hours not moving because no one is taking action about fixing the problem. And here, this is how we fix it. It was just by waiting a little bit and let that group pass. And that worked out pretty good for us. We're waiting for that team to come down. The view is amazing. We have a good attitude. And this is testing Norway step. It used to be Hillary Step. The Hillary Step fell off. It's a big chunk of rock on the left side of the road. That fell off after the earthquake 2015. As you can see, we have it for ourselves. And that's pretty straightforward for us.
It made it actually fun. It was a nice change of pace to get on something somewhat technical. You always read and hear about how crowded it is. So you prepared yourself to wait and freeze and be frustrated. And then when you get a green light, and that was actually, I think, one of the fun parts of the summit day.
So this is after the Hillary step. You can see how aggressive limit. Again, I mean, I have to say, still, the odds wasn't in my favor. I mean, you can plan everything you want, but still things can change. And you know, for us, we were able to wait a little bit. The weather wasn't looked that good on paper. It was looking good, but it still has a lot of what if. And eventually it paid off. And you guys can see in the background Mont Lhotse with the Lhotse Couloir, Mont Makalu to the left. Just incredible peaks. And the views are amazing. And this is when all the hard work or years and years of training and practicing and suffering and having a good time, it's paid off. That doesn't mean we made it. I think we always make it to the summit. We say we summit Everest as when we arrive home. And that's just what we encounter on our summit. And then eventually, it's just Reagan and I. Yeah, so we are on the summit of Everest, 8 something in the morning. The view is just absolutely amazing, and we can experience it. And just, I don't know, it's just, it doesn't matter. I mean, after all these years of summit, and every time I get to the top, I cry a little bit. I have tears. You know, the tears doesn't come out that much because everything freezes right away. It's extremely cold here.
I know it's very personal to everybody. You know, for me, my summit experience really started after the step. You know, I knew we were going to make it. Day was good. Team was strong. Short walk to the summit. And everybody who climbs knows the best views are the highest. And there's no higher view than where we were standing. Pictures don't really do it justice. And then, you know, I got really grateful. To have the opportunity to do that is not something you're really sure you'll ever get to do. And then when you get it and you're not worried about the descent, you know it's going to be good. You've put a lot into it. A lot of your friends have put a lot into it with you and your family. I felt pretty grateful, still do. Well, this is our friend Mac. Mac is an awesome climber. He learned to climb in the Northeast. He's been all over the world. And he is right in that picture experiencing his 7th summit. That was a big moment for Mac. For Mac, that had been many years in the making. That was his 3rd trip to Everest. He was happy enough to take off his oxygen mask.
As I was saying, nothing is possible with my brothers. Our Sherpa team from Lapadai. Without them, it's just nothing is possible. And I own them many, many dreams because they're pretty unique. They're super strong. They're extremely kind. Just without them, it was just impossible. And we have such amazing time with them. One important thing about Everest, about climbing, I choose to be a guide when I was quite young in life. And I put this picture of a young Matt Moniz. Matt Moniz is 10 years old. He was, along with his father, climbing the 50 highest points of all the states in the United States in 50 days. Incredible feat. We're going to be friends. And then we set up, years later, we set up as a goal, let's try to climb Everest, Lhotse, and Choyu. May 18, in 2018, Matt and I, we summited Everest. In the next day, so exactly less 24 hours later, we summit Lhotse. Right now, young Matt and I, we have climbed 4 8,000 meters peaks. I think we're going to do a few more. What climbing Himalayas has brought me is just this ability of being extremely grateful for experience and ability to pay it forward. The views from the summit are extremely unique. This is one of the views where I found it as the most profound views I have experienced in my life. If you see this picture and you see the shadow Everest over the Himalayas, the Tibetan flag is exactly like this. Climbing mountains, doing these things is extremely dangerous. You know, just because you're a super strong climber doesn't mean you're safe. Go and climb mountains, but be safe and come home because there's always people waiting for your home. Do your homework, guys. Have fun, be safe. Do whatever you can to help Nepal.
Yeah, and I'll just say thank you very much. Thanks for being attentive. And, you know, the mountains are calling and you must go.